Chapter 58. Oneris 9, 4156 Standard Astorian Principality Calendar, December 10th. 26702 Standard Terran Calendar, Dynasty System. Nornavio War Room. "Are you certain the vessels were correctly identified?" asked Commander Redford Callan as he set his gaze upon Head Officer Saratan Deshire. The blonde woman's eyes flickered with a soft light for a moment before nodding once. "The information was correlated, investigated, and verified multiple times, Commander. Our sensors detected their faint signatures moments after Castellan Kendale Caiston surrendered himself to our custody. Visual confirmation was acquired soon after the trio peeled away from their originally concealed position near the primary orbital refining station," she explained as the holographic display came to life, showcasing 3 oval-shaped Beak-class frigates. Their exterior hulls were smooth, mimicking the backdrop of the void, while their plumes shone faintly as they flew away. Wyatt stared at the holographic black ships, his memories of the ambush at Gintrax returning to the forefront of his mind. Since then, he hadn't seen another one, and now there were 3 of them. What are they doing here? He asked himself, but before he could think about voicing it, Lupin Lusanto took the initiative. Is there an inkling as to why they were stationed in this system? The majority of sighting reports have come from active combat zones, with minor exceptions. Could they be serving as an escort for some delegate? The technician-in-chief asked, eyeing the Intelligence Division head officer. The Communications Division, she paused to give Galt a short, thankful nod, was able to detect and intercept several minor transmissions shared between them. They were trying to confirm whether any black ships had been dispatched to the system before them. Their final message reads, "Rendezvous with the resurgence of magnificence." After that, nothing. Captain Milcades is interrogating Lord Kendall as we speak, but he is very cooperative. It appears that Lord Kendall was largely unaware of their existence. Our only working theories to explain their presence in the system at all are they were here to collect vital equipment and personnel, or they were carrying an envoy to deliver a crucial in-person message to Lord Kendall. The latter being our more unlikely, explained Saratan with a serious, collected tone. That name, Resurgence of Magnificence. I've never heard it before, said Lieutenant Commodore Tallulah Finnegan. Is it possible that such a name befits a cruiser or a battle cruiser? It is most likely the flagship of a small patrol group if a trio of frigates is under its command. If I were a betting man, which I am not, I'd wager that this Resurgence of Magnificence is a lofty name, if not completely pretentious, for a corvette-class or a destroyer-class vessel, said Lieutenant Commodore Donato Lintar, crossing his arms and leaning back on his chair. Could it be another light destroyer similar to the Gallant Venture? Asked Galt Tirome. Speculation shall lead us nowhere, said the princess, cutting through the conversation like a scalpel. Lady Tallulah, is it possible to pursue those frigates, or, should that fail, track their destination? The Reaper's Eye can do it, my princess. As long as their plumes are visible, and our AIs can calculate their possible vectors of travel, we shall deduce where they are heading, replied the sand-colored skinned woman. If I may, my princess, inquired Sabraska Kaspars. A hand gesture was her command to continue. Am I right to assume that Her Highness wishes to capture these ships? You assume correctly, Lady Sabraska. However, that objective is merely optional at this time. First, we must uncover where they are heading and what this mysterious ship, the Resurgence of Magnificence, is in reality. Only then shall I decide what our next step will be, replied Clara, as she, too, stared at the holographic display. Wyatt narrowed his eyes as he stared at the ships curiously. Marvels they were by Principality standards, but it had become apparent that the Duke's unknown supporters had only provided a certain number of ships. None loyal to the Prince knew how many black ships remained, but Redford was certain that their numbers were not only limited, but precious and used for specific missions in the traitors' cause. You're going to try and capture them regardless, aren't you, Clara? He asked himself, wondering if the Noir Navio and its 2 escort corvettes could even catch them in the first place. Suddenly, he felt a ping inside his head requesting a private channel to open. Accepting it, he heard Clara's voice clearly even as she didn't look at him. You are incredibly rude for thinking such a thing, Wyatt. Be glad that I can't directly read your surface thoughts in their totality, the blonde princess reprimanded with a partially playful tone. Then I'm not wrong, he replied, also avoiding eye contact. If you must know, yes, I wish to capture those vessels and any other black ship we come across, and that we're able to disable through whatever means are at hand to us. The more of these black ships we can turn against my uncle, the better. For each one we claim, my brother dearest will be better prepared to organize and launch a plan formulated in the recesses of his mind, she explained, leaning back on her seat as everyone remained silent, patiently waiting for her next words. But we don't have enough personnel to properly man them all, Wyatt asked, concerned. Do you forget so easily, Wyatt? We can divide our personnel into smaller fragments and assign some of my Royal Marines to take command of the vessel. It is not an ideal solution, but it is a viable one. Furthermore, I spoke no lies. Our primary mission takes precedence, and any possible ship capture will be considered only in the absence of furthering our goal, or if Redford and I deem the target too valuable to ignore. Anything on part to a Shadow-class light destroyer or superior will take priority. Beak-class frigates and Corvus-class corvettes will be ignored unless the previous parameters are met, she finished in a more serious, focused tone. Wyatt paused for a moment, only then remembering that indeed the Royal Marines could do that. You're right. If they can take over a ship like the Noir Navio without a navigational AI, then smaller ships would be far easier and require fewer of them. If we are to try to take those frigates, we have to strike them before they try to flee. Although I'm more concerned that they've detected our presence. They're going to call for reinforcements if they haven't already, he replied. A sense of acknowledgement resonated within his mind before the link was severed, leaving him with his thoughts once more. A few moments later, a quick shared glance with Cynthia revealed that she had been a silent listener of the conversation, or, more likely, Clara had privately informed her of it. Finally, Clara turned to Redford. Commander Redford, is it possible to give chase after these frigates without revealing our position? Redford crossed his arms before he used his left hand to reach up to his chin, gently resting his head in between his thumb and index finger. They detected our presence, but the advantage remains ours in the field of stealth. As we move away from the planet, we've become invisible to their long-range sensors. I reiterate, they know we are present in the system. If the Reaper's Eye moves ahead of our formation, as Lady Tallulah described, then we can narrow down what jump point they'll be heading to. Commander, if I may, since the traitors know we are here, wouldn't it be more prudent of them to simply remain adrift, making it impossible for us to detect them again? Asked Fabian Descher. They are following standard protocol and entered a communications blackout. Evidently they had their orders and are now following them. I'm certain they will try to fool us with short bursts to alter their heading, but in the end their options are limited, and they will seek to fulfill their orders to rendezvous with their command ship, answered his sister. By that line of logic, that should rule out possible reinforcements coming to their aid quickly. My princess, I may not be a strategist, but I advise against engaging the traitors to our liege. We do not know if they are in possession of a QEC. If so, they could very well lure us into a trap. Our element of surprise could be turned against us, for I beseech thee to reconsider engaging our enemy within their territory in open combat, said Lupin, making Clara frown slightly, absorbing his warning of caution for what it was. A direct engagement in a prolonged battle may not be necessary, added Sabraska, joining the discussion. These black ships are more suited for hit-and-run attacks, ambushes, and beheading strikes. Though Lord Lupin speaks the truth. If we give the frigates chase, we will be entering a combat zone in which our enemy will be ready for our arrival. Even with Engineer Jincho's aid in entering a system without alerting listening posts and ships to our warp signatures, our advantage will be limited and rely entirely on the assumption that these frigates will retain their communications blackout and that they do not possess a QEC device. We can't stand idle either, which is our other alternative, countered Redford. If capture is impossible, then those ships must be destroyed. Any asset we deny the traitors is a boon for our liege. It cannot be denied that these black ships, provided to him through unknown means by unknown benefactors, are a key factor in Duke Draymore's ongoing plans. He paused for a moment, lowering his left arm and turning to Clara. Yet, my princess, equally so, it cannot be denied that these dangerous possibilities are present. Hence, if it is your will, your majesty, I propose that these frigates are to be pursued and followed for a maximum of 3 system jumps. Our strategy and plan of action shall be reshaped in accordance with our findings. It is a viable plan, Commander, Clara began, closing her eyes for a moment. The fact that my life and safety are of utmost importance does not escape me. Fret not, I take no offense to it not being mentioned. For as the raven flies in the skies of many worlds, so too is this truth present in my mind. But it is not an impediment to taking action for what needs to be done. Multiple times my life has been in danger since this succession dispute began. Many times more it shall be yet put in the line. This is no different. Commander, our plan of action is yours to formulate. Lieutenant Commodore Tallulah Finnegan, you will return to your ship and be our eyes post-haste. Every moment we waste is an opportunity they gain. If any hold further reservations, speak openly. Eyes shifted around the room for a few seconds, gazes finding others but remaining silent until Saraton Deshire fixed her gaze upon Wyatt. You've been quiet this entire time, Lord Wyatt. Have you no insight to offer? No theoretical plan of action that may be of use through your unorthodox methodologies? She asked, not defiant but curious. Wyatt leaned forward slightly, just enough to be noticeable. Then he shook his head. What is there that I could add? He asked, letting the question hang in the air. Truly so. No greater concern? No obscure insight? No desire to unleash your bloodlust upon unworthy traitors and shower yourself in more glory, Wolfhound? Lupin asked, eyebrow raised in mild amusement. I have no desire to entertain you, damn blue blood. Not now, thought Wyatt bitterly, then stood up abruptly, surprising everyone present as he glared at the ghoulish pale man with red eyes. If we must kill them, then we'll kill them. If we can take over the ships, we'll take over the ship. If we have to flee, then we'll flee. Traitors they may be, but they aren't Drazen or damned pirates seeking to snatch innocent people away in the middle of the night. If you have a personal disagreement with me, Lusanto, then say it to my fucking face and issue a duel if you so want to. That's enough, Lord Staples. Retake your seat. Redford's voice rang through the room, and Wyatt obeyed instantly, giving him an apologetic nod in the process. Examining the faces of the officers present, he found that Lupin had leaned back against his seat, just enough for him to see the nervousness in his posture. The rest showed varying degrees of surprise at the unusually vocal outburst. No doubt all but Tallulah and Donato remembered his manic episode over Hago clearly. Despite Clara and Cynthia's best efforts, Wyatt remained on edge. He was still in control, but now his usual demeanor of conflict avoidance was severely wounded. He could only give silent thanks that no other noble on board the Noir Navio had been so devoid of intelligence as to try and test their self-perceived superiority over him again. We will discuss your attitude later, Lieutenant Commodore, he said, though an empty threat it was. Of course, Commander. My apologies, Technician-in-Chief Lusanto, said Wyatt diplomatically, but without any enthusiasm or weight. Lupin nodded once solemnly. In such a case, I extend an apology to you as well, Lord Staples. I spoke out of turn, he said, using the same diplomatic tone of voice. Wyatt returned the nod, catching a slightly concerned gaze from Clara and a slightly disapproving stare from Cynthia. If no one has anything of substance to add, then this reunion is concluded. You have your orders. Return to your daily tasks. Dismissed, commanded Redford. Once alone, Cynthia, Clara, and Redford shared a quick, concerned look, but said nothing. There was no need for words at that moment. Honoris 12, 4156. Standard Astorian Principality Calendar, December 13th, 26702. Standard Terran Calendar, Dapenshaw System. Noir Navio War Room. After a little over 2 days of careful pursuit, they arrived at the frigate's destination in only 2 jumps away from the Danesti system. And when they made way into the system, it was when Wyatt saw it for the first time. It was a ship. A black ship. A battlecruiser black ship. The ship was, according to their sensors, almost 4 kilometers in length, a kilometer in width at its widest point, 300 meters at the bow, 500 meters tall near the rear, and 200 meters tall at the bow. As was the case with other black ships, the hull was covered by the boogeyman armor, giving it that exterior sheen that blended with the backdrop of the void, concealing itself. Or rather it would be, were it not for the fact that the ship was docked to a medium-sized civilian-grade trade and docking station. The lights of the station were reflecting on its hull, its boogeyman armor making the, admittedly, gorgeous ship stand out against the backdrop that was the mostly gray exterior of the station's hull. There were colorful signs everywhere, either painted onto the hull itself or floating around as holovids, providing no cover or stealth whatsoever. The battlecruiser was, again, gorgeous. In a way, it was similar to the Noir Navio, a deadly-looking spear-tip-shaped vessel. Yet the similitudes ended there. Whereas the Noir Navio was undoubtedly a ship with a sole purpose in mind, the ship he was staring at could have fooled many were it not for its size. Wyatt couldn't quite define it as spear-tip-shaped, nor was it ovalloid or an arrowhead. Its surface was, however, smooth, more elegant and refined, with several different hull elevations running across its starboard and port. Near its center, it bulged out without creating a sphere. Instead, it was further divided by a couple of elevations. Their purpose escaped his understanding. There were some jagged edges and spikes similar to those on the Noir Navio, but they were few and far between. Finally, on the rear, there were two large protrusions, like wings. No, not wings, more like the fins he'd seen on some aquatic animals. In a twisted sense, the battlecruiser looked almost inoffensive, much like a Drazen cruiser looked to those unfamiliar with the damnable carrion eaters. But it fooled no one in the war room. They couldn't see its weaponry, but it has to be formidable, hidden right under its surface. A trembling hand grabbed the side of his uniform, but he didn't look down at Jincho. His avian friend had been rendered speechless the moment the ship was put on screen. "Are you certain the readings are correct, Lady Tallulah?" asked Cynthia, as she stared at the monitor providing a visual display of the monstrous ship. Tallulah, present via a screen display alongside Donato, crossed her arms and pointed at the ship. "We can't make more thorough scans without getting closer and revealing ourselves, Lady Cynthia. All our sensors indicate that the ship is quite possibly the resurgence of magnificence, as the 3 frigates have docked on the station." She paused for a moment, eyes flickering repeatedly. "Every reading indicates that the ship is operating under standard docking energy output and minimal shields. I've also confirmed that their boogeyman armor's sensor blocking and dispersal effectiveness are massively reduced." Tallulah paused again, turning to her officers a few times as she talked to them through her ship's network. "We've also confirmed that there are 2 other Corvus-class corvettes docked on the far side of the station, my princess." "What is a ship like that doing here?" asked Fabian, then he turned to Galt. "Have you seen this type of ship before, Tyrone?" "No, never. I assumed that battlecruisers existed, but it's my first time seeing one. If it is truly a battlecruiser, then much like the Noir Navio, it can punch well above its designation. I am willing to bet my honor that it could destroy any battlecruiser in the Principality in a fair battle. Maybe even surpass all but our strongest battleships," replied Galt, swallowing nervously. "But why is it here, docked to a civilian trade station alongside another 5 black ships?" Fabian pressed on. Refusing to avert his gaze from the display screen, Wyatt replied. "Could it be possible that they're on shore leave?" he began, chuckling at the absurdity of his comment. "Lady Sabraska, is it possible that they are merely resupplying?" Sabraska turned to Wyatt, gifting him a second-long, charming smile of acknowledgement. "It is possible and highly likely, Lieutenant Commodore." "Ha! The fools are exposed and vulnerable. My princess, deploy us en force. We shall board that vessel and claim it in the name of our prince," exclaimed Donato boisterously. "An ill-advised proposal," countered Lupin. "We know not how many forces they have at their disposal. We've yet to recover our losses after the Fanher incident. There are several patrol ships around the system, dozens of gunships roaming the station's perimeter and close to the domed colonies, not to mention the numerous civilian ships roaming about and docked at the station. Any boarding action would need to be not only tremendously effective, but also exceedingly fast to prevent any potential core reactor overload or being swarmed by reinforcements, both on the ground and in the void. "We Royal Marines shall be the tip of the spear, if our princess commands it so," said Milcades in a deferential tone as he bowed his head before Clara. Clara closed her eyes, finger-dancing slowly as she analyzed the information available to her. The risk was great, but the potential reward, the concept of a reward, was expunged from her mind as the word lacked the proper weight she needed. Not a reward. A prize. One that could outshine the capture of the Noir Navio itself by an order of magnitude. "Who could command such a mighty vessel?" she asked rhetorically. "Andrew Caiston, perhaps? If so, our fortune is multiplied further still. The unworthy Fleet Admiral Cornelius Tigan? A lesser prize, but one I would happily accept. Another admiral, perhaps. Would my uncle entrust a rear admiral? Decidedly, it should be a capable officer loyal to him, but who to trust with such a vessel? Natalian Wunder is a possibility." With a deep breath followed by a slow, steady exhale, she opened her eyes and turned to Redford. "Commander, it is my desire to seize that ship in the name of my brother dearest, the prince. However, This is no royal decree. I ask you and henceforth defer to your expertise. Can it be done? Is it possible to capture such a vessel through a direct boarding action? As Redford stared at the screen for long, silent, nerve-wracking moments, Wyatt did the same, but for entirely different reasons. Multiple scenarios crossed his mind, all of them focused on the quickest and most effective way to eliminate an enemy that was right in front of him. Too bad they're docked to that station. We could simply use the pulse beam cannon and destroy the ship along with whoever is commanding it. If we try to hold them at gunpoint with it, they're just going to stall for time. Just like damn pirates. Worse, they could call the bluff and prepare to fight, using the station as a shield. Then what? We flee or we fight that monster of a ship with its escorts, he thought grimly. We shall go on the offensive, Redford exclaimed, turning to face them all as his eyes flickered and the holographic display came to life, showcasing a representation of the station with the locations of black ships marked with red dots. Our fleet shall approach the station as close as we can, remaining undetected for as long as possible. On my mark, a barrage of Staplean assaults loaded with haywire mines will completely disable the frigates and the corvettes. Abiding by the rules of engagement, we will not fire upon the civilian station. A warning shall be issued, demanding all non-affiliated personnel to stay out of the fight to everyone on the station and all ships around it. The dots representing the black ships died out, except for the largest one. Under my prerogative, a controlled Staplean assault barrage will be sent against the battlecruiser, presumably the resurgence of Magnificence, and be partially disabled moments before the first hot drop pods and boarding pods make contact. They will have the objective to create havoc inside the ship as our shuttles prepare to deliver the rest of our troops to secure the ship. Milcades, your objective shall be twofold: eliminate their AIs and locate the commanding officer. Once located, proceed with capture procedures. You are given complete freedom to prepare for this operation as you see fit. Our fighters will be deployed to provide cover and fire support. At the same time, the Reaper's Blade will deter any Caiston ship from interfering, and the Reaper's Eye shall make use of her cyber warfare capabilities to paint phantom signals across potential enemy sensors. Then he turned to his violet-eyed niece, waiting expectantly. Julia smiles upon us. Go forth, everyone. Let loyalty be its own reward, she said, sharing a glance with Cynthia. The blue-haired woman gave her charge a tiny, almost imperceptible nod in return. Loyalty is its own reward! A collective shout echoed in the room as the non-verbal dismissal gave them the order to return to their posts and prepare for what would be a lightning operation. Just as Wyatt was about to turn and leave, he felt a strong hand clasp his shoulder. Turning to face the perpetrator, he found Milcades staring back at him seriously. Milcades? I need to go prepare for the battle. Yes, you do? But you aren't going to pilot a fighter, revealed Milcades. Then he turned his gaze down at Jincho. And neither are you going to stay here, Jincho. His serious expression became frigid. It was no laughing matter. You two are coming with me. Personally. Jincho balked while Wyatt, resolute as ever, nodded in affirmation, sharing a quick glance with his friends and the commander he'd come to respect and admire dearly. No words were needed as he turned around and left the room. He needed to get ready.